Madison stares at her reflection, hands trembling as she touches the wedding dress hanging behind her. Today should be perfect, but fear gnaws at her heart. Katie bursts through the door. Madison, we need to talk. Right now. You can't go through with this wedding without telling him the truth. Katie, stop. Jonathan loves me. That's all that matters. Madison turns away, but her voice wavers with uncertainty. He doesn't love the real you. He loves a lie. What happens when he finds out you're not rich? Meanwhile, across town, Jonathan stands before the mirror in the church vestry, adjusting his tie nervously. Victoria Sterling approaches her son, her face pale with shock. Jonathan, darling, we need to discuss something urgent. What do you mean, Mother? Madison is perfect. Her family, her background. Jonathan's voice trails off as he sees Victoria's expression. Madison paces frantically. It's too late now. The church is full of people. His whole family is there. Victoria whispers urgently. The investigator's report just came in. She's not who she claims to be, Jonathan. Madison stares at herself in the wedding dress, tears threatening. What if you're right? What if this falls apart? Jonathan stands frozen, his mother's words echoing in his mind. Was everything a lie? Maybe I should just disappear, Madison whispers, her dream of happiness crumbling. Jonathan walks toward the altar, his mind racing. Should he confront her? His heart pounds. Madison takes a deep breath. I have to believe that love will conquer all. It has to. Madison arrives at the church, unaware that her world is about to change forever. The church fills with anticipation as Jonathan waits, his mother's revelation weighing heavily on his mind. Madison pauses at the church doors, taking one last moment before stepping into her fairy tale ending. As Madison begins her walk down the aisle, she doesn't notice the whispers starting to spread. Jonathan watches Madison approach, his heart torn between love and the shocking truth his mother revealed. With each step toward the altar, Madison senses something is wrong. The whispers grow louder, and Jonathan's expression isn't what she expected. Thank you for watching from wherever you are in the world. What do you think Jonathan will do when he confronts Madison? Will love truly conquer all, or will the truth destroy everything? Please like this video and subscribe for more incredible stories that will touch your heart and restore your faith in love. 2 years earlier, Michael Thompson walked into Sterling Engineering with confidence, unaware this would be his last day as a successful engineer. He had worked here for 12 years, building a reputation as one of their most reliable project managers. The morning started like any other, coffee in hand, reviewing blueprints, preparing for what he thought would be just another productive day. He greeted the security guard with his usual smile, took the elevator to the 15th floor, and settled into his corner office overlooking downtown. Little did he know that within hours, his entire world would crumble. Michael, please have a seat, Mr. Harrison said, his usually warm demeanor replaced by cold professionalism. Around the table sat faces Michael had known for years, now avoiding his gaze. The company was hemorrhaging money, and decisions had to be made. The construction industry had taken a massive hit, and even established firms like Sterling Engineering weren't immune to the economic downturn. Michael's stomach began to churn as he realized this wasn't about a new project assignment. The tension in the room was palpable, and every executive looked uncomfortable, their eyes focused on documents rather than meeting his gaze. Due to budget constraints and restructuring, your position has been eliminated effective immediately. The words hit Michael like a physical blow. 12 years of dedication, countless overtime hours, projects completed ahead of schedule, client relationships built from scratch. None of it mattered now. His hands trembled as he held the termination letter, the legal jargon blurring together as his mind struggled to process what was happening. The severance package was modest, barely enough to cover 2 months of expenses. Mr. Harrison's voice seemed to echo from a distance as he explained the logistics of cleaning out his office and returning company property. Michael walked through the hallways carrying his personal belongings in a cardboard box, feeling like he was trapped in a nightmare. Coworkers he had shared lunch with for years watched with sympathetic expressions, some offering quiet words of encouragement, others simply nodding with understanding. The hallway seemed endless, each step taking him further away from the life he had built. His family photos, engineering awards, the small plant Rebecca had given him for his office, everything that represented his professional identity now fit into one small box. The elevator ride down felt like a descent into an uncertain future. Sitting in his car in the parking garage, Michael stared at the steering wheel, unable to start the engine. How could he drive home and face Rebecca's excited chatter about their future plans? How could he look Ashley in the eye when she talked about college applications? How could he maintain Tyler's hero worship when he felt like such a failure? The concrete walls of the garage seemed to close in around him as reality began to sink in. His phone buzzed with a text from Rebecca asking if he'd be home for dinner, and the normalcy of her message made everything feel even more surreal. 20 minutes later, Michael sat in his driveway, watching the warm lights of his home through the windows. He could see Rebecca moving around the kitchen, probably preparing his favorite meal. The house represented everything he had worked for, their piece of the American dream, a safe haven for his family. How could he walk through that front door and shatter their sense of security? The decision formed in his mind like a desperate prayer. He would tell them tomorrow, after he had time to figure out a plan. Just one night to let them sleep peacefully, unaware that their world had shifted. Look at this, Ashley. With your grades and your father's steady income, you could get into any of these programs, Rebecca said enthusiastically, spreading glossy college brochures across the coffee table. Ashley's eyes lit up as she examined photos of beautiful campuses and read about prestigious engineering programs. I want to follow in Dad's footsteps, Ashley declared with pride. He's shown me that with hard work and dedication, you can build something meaningful. Rebecca beamed with maternal pride, already envisioning graduation day and the bright future ahead for their daughter. Michael stood frozen in the doorway, briefcase containing his termination letter clutched in his hand, watching his wife and daughter plan a future that no longer existed. Every word about his steady income and successful career felt like a knife twisting in his chest. Ashley's admiration for his professional achievements made him feel like an imposter in his own home. How could he destroy their dreams with the truth? How could he watch the light fade from their eyes when they realized their financial security was gone? The love and trust in their voices made the burden of his secret even heavier. At dinner, Michael forced himself to smile and nod as Tyler excitedly described his upcoming baseball season. Coach says if I keep improving, I might get a scholarship to a good college, Tyler announced proudly. Rebecca squeezed Michael's hand under the table. With both kids having such bright futures, we're so blessed, she whispered. Michael's throat tightened as he realized how many people would be affected by his job loss. The family traditions, the college funds, the sense of stability they had all taken for granted. Everything was now hanging by a thread that he was too afraid to cut. That night, Michael lay awake staring at the ceiling while Rebecca slept peacefully beside him. Tomorrow, he promised himself, he would tell them everything. He would face their disappointment, help them adjust their expectations, and figure out a way forward together as a family. But as dawn approached, and he heard Rebecca humming in the shower, preparing for another day filled with hope and plans, the words caught in his throat. Just one more day, he whispered to himself, not knowing that one day would become 2 years of increasingly elaborate lies that would nearly destroy everything he was trying to protect. The relationship develops with Madison living a double life that becomes more elaborate each day. During the day, she works as a cleaning lady in various locations to survive, scrubbing floors and emptying trash cans while remaining invisible to the people whose offices she cleans. Her hands are raw from chemicals. Her back aches from bending over desks and toilets, but she pushes through the physical exhaustion because she knows this is temporary. Jonathan believes she works in marketing consulting, and Madison will do whatever it takes to maintain that illusion. Each office she cleans represents the world she pretends to belong to when the sun goes down. The double life is exhausting, but the magic of her evenings with Jonathan makes every difficult day worth enduring. Madison works multiple cleaning jobs to make ends meet and afford the lifestyle accessories she needs for her deception. Morning shift at the corporate complex, afternoon shift at a medical building, evening shift at a law firm. Her supervisors treat her as invisible and replaceable. Customers barely acknowledge her existence, and she moves through her days like a ghost in the machine of other people's success. Between jobs, she carries a carefully packed bag containing borrowed designer clothes, transforming herself in public restrooms from cleaning lady to the sophisticated woman Jonathan expects to meet. The physical exhaustion pales in comparison to the emotional toll of living two completely different lives. But Madison has become addicted to the respect and admiration she receives when wearing her borrowed identity. At night, Madison performs her daily transformation in department store bathrooms and restaurant restrooms throughout the city. The cleaning uniform gets stuffed into a bag, replaced by expensive dresses, jewelry, and accessories borrowed from her wealthy cleaning clients who discard designer items after wearing them once. She practices her smile in the mirror, rehearses conversations about fictional marketing projects, and transforms herself into someone who belongs in Jonathan's world of success and privilege. The borrowed clothes fit her perfectly, but they feel like a costume she's wearing in an elaborate performance. Every evening, Madison must become an actress playing the role of a successful woman, and she's terrified that one day she'll forget her lines and the entire charade will come crashing down around her. At night, Madison meets Jonathan in expensive restaurants and exclusive venues she could never afford on her real income. She's memorized business terminology from magazines and overheard conversations, allowing her to fake her way through discussions about marketing strategies and client relations. "You look tired, darling," Jonathan says with genuine concern during one of their dinner dates. "Have you been working too hard on that promotional campaign?" Madison has learned to speak his language of success and ambition, carefully crafting responses that sound professional without revealing any specific details that could expose her lies. Each dinner date is a carefully choreographed performance where she must remember every fictional detail about her imaginary career while appearing relaxed and natural in surroundings that represent everything she's never had. Jonathan talks constantly about their future together, showing Madison architectural plans for the house he wants to build after they're married. 5 bedrooms, 3-car garage, wine cellar, pool in the back, he says with excitement, spreading blueprints across his marble coffee table. Madison studies the plans, calculating that the master bathroom alone is larger than her entire shared apartment. The house represents a lifestyle she's never experienced, dreams she's allowed herself to believe in despite knowing they're built on lies. "It's beautiful," she whispers, meaning every word while terror grips her heart at the thought of how impossible this future really is. Jonathan's plans assume a level of financial stability and social status that exist only in Madison's carefully constructed fiction. Madison returns to her tiny shared apartment where Katie is making dinner from whatever groceries they can afford on their combined minimum wage incomes. The contrast between Jonathan's luxury apartment and her real home is jarring and depressing. Katie takes one look at Madison's exhausted face and shakes her head with concern. "This double life is killing you," Katie says as Madison collapses into a kitchen chair, still wearing the borrowed dress that feels like a beautiful prison. The apartment's peeling wallpaper and secondhand furniture serve as a harsh reminder of Madison's actual circumstances, making Jonathan's world feel even more like an impossible dream. Katie has watched her roommate transform from a hopeful young woman into someone who barely recognizes herself. Katie constantly warns Madison about the dangers of the farce she's maintaining, but Madison is too far gone to listen to reason. "He doesn't love you," Katie says gently but firmly during one of their late-night conversations. "He loves the woman you're pretending to be. There's a difference, and you know it." Madison's eyes fill with tears as the truth of her friend's words hits home, but she's become addicted to the way Jonathan looks at her with admiration and respect. "What if I tell him the truth and he leaves?" Madison asks desperately. "What if he can't love the real me?" Katie reaches for her friend's hand, knowing that Madison is trapped in a web of lies that grows more complex every day. The borrowed dress suddenly feels suffocating, like a beautiful costume she can never remove. Madison is too deeply in love to hear Katie's warnings about the inevitable consequences of living a lie. When Jonathan talks about their future, about the life they'll build together, about the children they'll have, and the legacy they'll create, Madison allows herself to believe that love will somehow make everything work out. She's fallen completely under the spell of being treated with respect and admiration, of being seen as someone worthy of a successful man's attention. The way Jonathan looks at her, the way he values her opinions and includes her in his plans, has become like a drug she can't live without. Madison has convinced herself that if she can just maintain the deception long enough, maybe she can somehow transform it into reality. Maybe she can actually become the woman Jonathan thinks he's fallen in love with. Jonathan constantly talks about the plans and dreams he has for their life together, painting pictures of vacations to Europe, charity galas, and social events that require the kind of wardrobe and background Madison could never afford or fake convincingly. "I love planning our future," he tells her as they walk through expensive shopping districts, pointing out jewelry stores and boutiques. "It's so important to be with someone who shares your values and understands the responsibilities that come with success." His words are like arrows to Madison's heart, knowing that her real values are about survival and her real responsibilities involve cleaning other people's messes for minimum wage. Every conversation about their future builds the lie higher and makes the eventual crash more devastating. But Madison can't bring herself to stop the beautiful fantasy they're creating together. Late at night, Madison lies awake in the small bedroom she shares with Katie, staring at the water-stained ceiling that Jonathan will never see and thinking about the impossible future they're planning together. In a few hours, she'll wake up and start the exhausting cycle again, cleaning, transforming, performing, lying. Jonathan's plans for their life together play through her mind like scenes from a movie she's not sure she'll ever actually star in. The house with 5 bedrooms, the successful career he thinks she has, the social status he assumes she possesses. It's all built on a foundation of deception that grows more unstable every day. Madison closes her eyes and whispers a prayer, asking for guidance and wondering if love built on lies can ever become something real, or if she's just delaying the inevitable heartbreak that will destroy them both when the truth finally comes to light. The lies accumulate as Jonathan begins talking seriously about marriage and proposing in the most romantic way possible. He takes Madison to expensive jewelry stores to look at engagement rings, discussing their preferences while she tries to hide her panic about the growing deception. "I want everything to be perfect for you," Jonathan says as he examines diamond rings that cost more than Madison makes in 2 years. The jeweler treats them like the successful couple they appear to be, discussing payment plans and custom settings while Madison's heart pounds with the knowledge that she's living a complete fabrication. Each ring represents a promise built on lies, a future that can only exist as long as Jonathan never discovers who she really is underneath the borrowed clothes and carefully constructed persona. Jonathan proposes marriage in the private dining room of the city's most exclusive restaurant, going down on one knee with a ring that sparkles like captured starlight. "Madison, you're everything I've ever dreamed of in a partner," he says with genuine love and emotion. "Your intelligence, your sophistication, your understanding of what it means to build a successful life together." Madison stares at the ring through tears, knowing that every quality he's praising is part of an elaborate lie she's constructed. When she says yes, her voice catches with both joy and terror, understanding that accepting his proposal means committing to a deception that will only grow more complex and dangerous. The restaurant staff applauds their engagement, treating them like the perfect successful couple, while Madison's mind races with the impossibility of planning a wedding based on fictional circumstances. After the proposal, Jonathan immediately begins talking about wedding plans and the elaborate celebration he wants to host for their families and friends. "I can't wait for you to meet my parents," he says excitedly, pulling out his phone to call them with the good news. And I'm so excited to finally meet your family, too. It's been too long since they've been traveling for business. Madison's blood runs cold as she realizes the web of lies she's created about her fictional family, who are supposedly wealthy business owners constantly traveling abroad. She's invented an entire extended family of successful relatives to explain why Jonathan has never met them. But now that they're engaged, he'll expect them to appear for the wedding planning and ceremony. Jonathan insists on touring the most expensive wedding venues in the city, places that charge more for one evening than Madison makes in a year. "Nothing but the best for my beautiful fiancé," he says as they walk through ballrooms with crystal chandeliers and marble floors. The wedding coordinator discusses catering options, floral arrangements, and guest accommodations while Madison calculates that the flowers alone would cost more than her annual rent. She nods and smiles while internally panicking about how she'll afford any contribution to these wedding expenses, let alone explain why her family can't help with the costs. Every decision they make together pushes Madison deeper into a financial and social situation she can never actually fulfill. Jonathan takes Madison to meet his mother, Victoria Sterling, in her mansion that represents generational wealth and social status. Victoria examines Madison with sharp, calculating eyes, asking subtle questions about her family background, education, and social connections. "Jonathan tells me your family is an international business," Victoria says with a smile that doesn't reach her eyes. "I'd love to meet them soon and discuss how our families can support each other." Madison responds with carefully rehearsed answers about her fictional family's overseas commitments, feeling Victoria's skeptical gaze analyzing every word. The mansion's opulence makes Madison feel like an imposter, and she senses that Victoria suspects something isn't quite right about her son's mysterious fiancé. Madison returns to her tiny apartment in a state of complete panic, the engagement ring feeling like a beautiful chain binding her to an impossible lie. "I have to invent an entire wedding party, Katie," she says frantically. Parents, siblings, relatives, college friends. Jonathan expects to meet everyone, and they're all fictional. Katie watches her roommate pace their small kitchen, recognizing that the situation has spiraled completely out of control. "You have to tell him the truth before this goes any further," Katie pleads. "A wedding means legal documents, background checks, meeting families. You can't fake your way through marriage." Madison stares at the engagement ring, understanding that she's reached a point where continuing the lie might be impossible, but telling the truth would mean losing everything she's ever dreamed of having. Jonathan takes Madison dress shopping at the city's most exclusive bridal salon, where wedding gowns cost more than she makes in 6 months. The saleswoman treats her like royalty, bringing champagne and discussing custom alterations while Madison tries on dress after dress. "You look absolutely radiant," Jonathan says when she emerges in a stunning gown that fits like it was made for her. "This is how I always imagined you'd look on our wedding day, like a princess who belongs in a fairy tale." Madison stares at herself in the three-way mirror, seeing a bride who looks perfect for Jonathan's world, but knowing that underneath the expensive gown is a woman who cleans toilets for a living. The dress represents everything she's always dreamed of, but it's built on a foundation of lies that could collapse at any moment. Victoria Sterling begins making discreet inquiries about Madison's background, using her social connections to try to verify the stories about her family's international business dealings. She calls contacts in various industries, searches social media, and asks subtle questions at country club gatherings about families matching Madison's description. Victoria's maternal instincts and social experience tell her something isn't right about her son's fiancé, especially the convenient explanations for why her family is never available to meet. The more Victoria investigates, the more concerned she becomes about the complete lack of verifiable information about Madison's supposed wealthy background. Her protective instincts toward Jonathan's future and the family's reputation drive her to dig deeper into the mystery surrounding her son's mysterious bride-to-be. During wedding planning meetings, Madison must make elaborate excuses for why her family can't participate in planning sessions or contribute to wedding expenses. "My parents are closing a major business deal in Singapore," she tells the wedding coordinator when asked about family preferences for the reception menu. And my siblings are all traveling for their various business commitments. Jonathan accepts these explanations because they fit with his image of Madison's successful family. But the coordinator begins noting the unusual absence of any family involvement in planning such an elaborate wedding. Madison realizes that she's invented a family so successful they're too busy to care about their daughter's wedding, which raises questions about their priorities and values that she hadn't considered when creating the fiction. Late at night, Madison lies awake staring at her engagement ring in the dim light, understanding that she's committed to a lie so elaborate that maintaining it through a wedding and marriage seems impossible. The ring represents everything she's ever wanted: love, security, respect, a future with someone who treasures her. But it's all based on deception. Jonathan's plans for their wedding grow more elaborate each day, involving social circles and family connections that don't exist, financial contributions she can't make, and a background she's completely fabricated. Madison realizes she's reached a crossroads where she must either confess everything and risk losing Jonathan forever, or continue building lies so complex that they could destroy both their lives when the truth inevitably comes to light. The weight of the deception has become unbearable, but the thought of losing Jonathan's love feels even worse. The pressure increases dramatically when Victoria Sterling insists on meeting Madison's family and visiting their home, making demands that threaten to expose Madison's elaborate deception completely. Jonathan, I think it's absolutely essential that we meet Madison's parents before the wedding, Victoria announces during Sunday dinner at the Sterling mansion. And I'd love to see their home. It's important for our families to establish a proper relationship before you two are married. Victoria's tone makes it clear this isn't a suggestion, but an expectation, and her sharp eyes study Madison's reaction carefully. Madison feels her blood run cold as she realizes that Victoria's insistence on meeting her fictional family could destroy everything she's built with Jonathan. The pressure in the room becomes suffocating as both Jonathan and his mother wait for Madison's response to what should be a simple and natural request. Madison invents an elaborate story about her family's living situation to avoid Victoria's demands for a home visit, claiming they're temporarily displaced due to major renovations. Actually, my family is in the middle of completely renovating their mansion, Madison explains, trying to keep her voice steady despite her racing heart. They're staying in a temporary residence while the contractors gut the entire main house and add a new wing. It's been going on for months, and you know how these luxury renovations can drag on. She adds details about architectural updates, imported Italian marble, and custom millwork to make the story sound convincing. Victoria listens with a polite smile, but her eyes remain calculating and suspicious. Jonathan nods sympathetically, understanding how disruptive major home renovations can be for wealthy families. Madison expands her fictional explanation by claiming her family is temporarily living abroad while their mansion undergoes extensive renovations, making them unavailable for immediate visits or meetings. They decided to spend the renovation period in their London residence. Madison continues, weaving more complexity into her lie. My father is overseeing some European business acquisitions anyway, and my mother is taking advantage of being there to work with interior designers for the new wing. She describes how the family felt it was better to be completely out of the way during such major construction, mentioning dust, noise, and the disruption to their normal entertaining schedule. Jonathan finds this explanation perfectly reasonable, knowing how wealthy families often have multiple residences and use renovation periods as opportunities for extended travel. Victoria listens politely, but her expression suggests she's filing away every detail for future verification. Jonathan accepts Madison's explanations about her family situation because they align with his understanding of how wealthy families handle major home renovations and international business commitments. That makes perfect sense, Jonathan says, pulling Madison close on his leather sofa. I remember when the Weatherbys renovated their estate. They spent 18 months in their Hamptons house because the construction was so extensive. and it's smart of your father to handle European business while they're already there. His easy acceptance of her story fills Madison with both relief and deeper guilt about deceiving someone who trusts her so completely. Jonathan even offers to visit them in London if that would be more convenient, which sends Madison into a new panic about maintaining lies across international borders. She realizes that every solution to one problem creates new complications that require even more elaborate deceptions. Victoria Sterling becomes increasingly suspicious of Madison's convenient explanations for her family's unavailability, sensing that the stories are too perfectly crafted to deflect every reasonable request for family interaction. Victoria's decades of social experience and maternal protective instincts tell her that something fundamental is wrong with Madison's background story. She begins making discreet inquiries through her social networks, calling contacts in London's high society circles and international business communities to see if anyone knows Madison's supposedly prominent family. Victoria's suspicions are heightened by Madison's detailed knowledge of renovation processes and European business practices, which seem rehearsed rather than lived experiences. She decides to conduct more thorough research into Madison's background, driven by a growing conviction that her son might be the target of an elaborate deception that could destroy his future and the family's reputation. Madison responds to the mounting pressure and expenses by working double shifts at every available cleaning job, pushing her body to its limits to afford the wedding dress and mounting expenses associated with their engagement. She works early morning shifts at corporate buildings, afternoon shifts at retail stores, and evening shifts at restaurants, barely sleeping between jobs as she tries to generate enough income to maintain her expensive charade. Her hands become raw and cracked from constant exposure to cleaning chemicals. Her back aches from hours of scrubbing floors and bathrooms, and she loses weight from exhaustion and stress. Madison takes on weekend jobs cleaning private homes, accepting any work that pays cash immediately, and even picks up holiday cleaning gigs that require working through nights. The physical toll of working multiple minimum wage jobs while maintaining the appearance of wealth becomes almost unbearable. Madison works turnover after turnover to pay for a wedding dress that costs more than she makes in 6 months, using credit cards, borrowed money, and every dollar from her cleaning jobs to afford the gown Jonathan expects his bride to wear. The bridal consultant discusses payment plans and additional accessories, while Madison mentally calculates how many hours of scrubbing toilets each element of her wedding attire represents. The alterations will require 3 fittings, and we recommend adding the matching veil and shoes for the complete bridal look. The consultant explains cheerfully, unaware that Madison is doing desperate math about payday loans and credit card cash advances. Madison nods and agrees to expenses she can't afford, knowing that refusing would seem strange for someone from her supposed wealthy background. She's trapped in a cycle where maintaining her deception requires spending money she doesn't have on things that prove she belongs in a world she's never actually inhabited. The expenses associated with maintaining her engagement charade drain Madison's resources completely, forcing her to take desperate financial measures that threaten her basic survival. She's borrowed money from payday loan companies at predatory interest rates, maxed out credit cards she can't pay back, and sold everything of value she owns to fund wedding dress deposits and engagement party contributions. Katie watches with growing alarm as Madison counts dollar bills from multiple cleaning jobs, trying to stretch minimum wage earnings to cover expenses that wealthy people consider routine. "You can't keep this up," Katie says as Madison sorts through bills and loan documents scattered across their small kitchen table. "You're destroying yourself financially and physically for a lie that's going to collapse anyway." Madison knows her friend is right, but she's too deep into the deception and too afraid of losing Jonathan to consider any alternative to continuing the increasingly impossible charade. Madison struggles to hide the physical and emotional toll of working multiple cleaning jobs while maintaining her sophisticated appearance during dates and social events with Jonathan. She applies extra makeup to cover the dark circles under her eyes, uses hand cream to disguise the damage from cleaning chemicals, and forces herself to appear energetic and engaged despite being exhausted from working 16-hour days. Jonathan notices that she seems tired lately, but attributes it to wedding planning stress rather than the reality that she's working herself to the bone to afford their lifestyle. "You've been working so hard on that marketing campaign," he says sympathetically during dinner in an expensive restaurant. "Maybe you should take some vacation time after the wedding." Madison smiles and agrees, knowing that she can't afford to miss even one day of work without falling further behind on the mounting expenses required to maintain her deception. Late at night, Madison collapses in a bed after another 18-hour day of cleaning jobs, surrounded by wedding planning materials and bills she can't afford to pay, understanding that the pressure and expenses of maintaining her deception are becoming unsustainable. Her body aches from physical labor, her hands are raw from chemicals, and her mind races with the complexity of lies she must remember and maintain. The wedding dress hanging in their small closet represents months of desperate work and financial sacrifice, but it also symbolizes how far she's willing to go to preserve the fairy tale life she's built with Jonathan. Madison stares at the ceiling, calculating how many more double shifts she'll need to work to afford the remaining wedding expenses, while knowing that each day of deception makes the eventual revelation more devastating. The weight of maintaining lies, working multiple jobs, and keeping Jonathan's love has become a burden that threatens to crush everything she's trying to protect. Victoria Sterling makes the decision to hire a private investigator to conduct a thorough background check on Madison, driven by her growing suspicions about the inconsistencies in her son's fiancé's story. "I need you to investigate Madison Clark discreetly," Victoria tells the professional investigator, sliding a folder across her mahogany desk. "Find out everything about her family, their business dealings, their social connections, and verify whether any of the stories she's told my son are actually true." The investigator nods professionally, understanding the sensitive nature of the assignment and the need for complete confidentiality to protect the Sterling family's reputation. Victoria's maternal instincts have evolved into serious concern that Jonathan might be marrying someone who is deceiving him about fundamental aspects of her identity and background. She feels compelled to protect her son from what she increasingly believes might be an elaborate deception that could destroy his future and damage the family's social standing. Meanwhile, Madison finds herself having to create new lies about why her parents can't attend the wedding, telling Jonathan that urgent business commitments will prevent their participation in the most important day of their daughter's life. "I'm so sorry, darling," Madison says, trying to keep her voice steady despite her racing heart. "My parents just called from London, and there's been a crisis with one of their major business deals. They have to fly to Singapore immediately to handle some urgent negotiations that can't be postponed." She watches Jonathan's face fall with disappointment as she explains that her father is dealing with a hostile takeover attempt of one of their subsidiary companies, requiring his immediate attention to protect millions of dollars in investments. Madison adds that her mother must accompany him because the business partners they're meeting only work with couples, making it impossible for either parent to attend their daughter's wedding. The lies flow smoothly from her lips, polished by months of practice, but each word deepens her guilt about deceiving the man she loves. Jonathan struggles to hide his hurt and confusion about why Madison's family consistently prioritizes business over their daughter's major life events, including her wedding day. "I don't understand," Jonathan says, his voice filled with disappointment. "How can any business deal be more important than their only daughter's wedding? My parents would never miss something this significant, no matter what was happening with their companies." Madison quickly invents additional details about her family's business philosophy, claiming they've always taught her that personal sacrifices are necessary for maintaining their financial empire, and that missing the wedding demonstrates their trust in her judgment about Jonathan. She explains that her parents believe their absence shows respect for the couple's independence and maturity, using business psychology terms she's memorized from magazines to make her explanation sound sophisticated and believable. Jonathan accepts her reasoning reluctantly, but Madison can see that her family's continued absence is creating doubt about their values and priorities. Madison must explain to wedding vendors and coordinators why her family won't be participating in any aspect of the wedding planning or ceremony, creating logistical complications that threaten to expose her deception. My parents have urgent business commitments that will prevent them from attending, Madison tells the wedding coordinator when asked about family seating arrangements and reception speeches. They're dealing with international acquisitions that require their immediate and ongoing attention. The coordinator looks puzzled by such complete family absence from wedding planning, noting that even the busiest executives typically make time for their children's weddings. Madison invents elaborate explanations about her family's business philosophy and their belief that young couples should handle their own wedding arrangements without parental interference. She claims this approach demonstrates their confidence in her maturity and decision-making abilities, using business terminology to make her explanations sound sophisticated rather than suspicious. However, the coordinator's continued questions about family involvement create additional stress for Madison as she realizes how unusual her situation appears to outsiders. Katie becomes increasingly alarmed by the escalation of Madison's deception and stages another intervention, warning her roommate that lies have a way of surfacing at the worst possible moments. "Madison, you're building this entire marriage on a foundation of lies," Katie says firmly, gesturing to the wedding planning materials scattered across their small kitchen table. "What happens on your wedding day when people expect to meet your family? What happens when Jonathan's business associates want to network with your father's supposedly successful company?" Katie points out that the wedding will bring together social circles and business connections that could easily expose Madison's fictional background through casual conversation and networking. She warns that wealthy families typically investigate their children's romantic partners, especially before marriage, and that Madison's elaborate lies are creating a paper trail that professional investigators could easily uncover. Katie's voice becomes desperate as she begs her friend to consider the consequences of being exposed as a fraud during or after the wedding ceremony. Katie warns Madison that lies always come to light eventually, especially when they involve wealthy families who have resources to investigate backgrounds thoroughly and protect their social reputations. Rich people don't just accept strangers into their families without checking, Katie explains desperately. They hire investigators, they verify business connections, they run background checks, especially before marriages that could affect inheritances and family wealth. Katie points out that Madison's fictional family's complete absence from all social events and business networks will eventually raise red flags for people who understand how wealthy families operate. She warns that Victoria Sterling's obvious suspicion means the investigation has probably already begun, and that professional investigators will easily uncover the truth about Madison's real circumstances. Katie emphasizes that the longer the deception continues, the more devastating the consequences will be when the truth inevitably surfaces, potentially destroying both Madison's and Jonathan's reputations in their respective social circles. Madison refuses to listen to Katie's warnings, insisting that it's too late to tell the truth now without destroying everything she's built with Jonathan and losing the only love she's ever experienced. "I can't tell him now," Madison says, twisting her engagement ring nervously. "We're getting married in 2 weeks. The invitations are sent. The church is booked. The reception is planned. If I tell him the truth now, it will destroy him and humiliate both our families in front of everyone we know." Madison argues that she's gone too far down this path to turn back, that confessing would hurt Jonathan more than continuing the deception, and that their love is strong enough to overcome the circumstances of how it began. She claims that once they're married, the details of her background won't matter because they'll be building a new life together based on their genuine feelings for each other. Katie listens with growing despair as Madison rationalizes continuing the lie, understanding that her friend has become so invested in the deception that she can't see how it will inevitably destroy the relationship she's trying to protect. Madison continues working multiple cleaning jobs to afford the final wedding expenses, unaware that her real circumstances are being documented and investigated by professionals hired by Victoria Sterling. She scrubs floors in corporate buildings, cleans bathrooms in medical offices, and works overnight shifts in retail stores, pushing her body to its limits to generate enough income for wedding dress alterations, reception contributions, and honeymoon expenses. Madison's hands are permanently stained by cleaning chemicals. Her back aches from physical labor, and she's lost significant weight from stress and exhaustion. But she hides these signs of her real life when she transforms into the sophisticated woman Jonathan expects to marry. The irony of cleaning the offices and buildings where Jonathan's social and business associates work is not lost on her. But she's too desperate to maintain her deception to consider the risks of being recognized. Every day of manual labor represents another step deeper into a lie that's consuming her health, finances, and emotional well-being. Madison insists to Katie that telling the truth now would be catastrophic for everyone involved, that she's committed too deeply to the deception to back out without destroying multiple lives and reputations. It's too late, Madison repeats like a mantra, using this phrase to justify continuing lies that have spiraled beyond her control. Jonathan's family has spent thousands of dollars on this wedding. Hundreds of people are coming. His business reputation is tied to marrying someone from my supposed background. If I confess now, I'll destroy his social standing and make him look like a fool who couldn't recognize an obvious deception. Madison argues that the wedding must proceed as planned because the alternative, public humiliation and social disgrace, would be worse for Jonathan than marrying someone who isn't exactly who she claimed to be. She convinces herself that love will overcome the circumstances of their meeting, that Jonathan's feelings for her are strong enough to survive learning the truth after they're safely married. Madison refuses to acknowledge Katie's warnings that discovery after marriage would be exponentially more devastating than confession before the ceremony. Late at night, Madison lies awake surrounded by wedding planning materials and final preparation lists, convincing herself that it's too late to change course and that she must see the deception through to its conclusion regardless of the consequences. The wedding dress hanging in her closet represents months of sacrifice and deception, but also the fulfillment of dreams she never thought possible for someone from her background. Madison stares at her engagement ring in the dim light, understanding that she's reached a point of no return where confessing would destroy everything while continuing might preserve the fairy tale life she's built with Jonathan. She's calculated the risks and decided that marriage offers her the best chance of eventually revealing the truth under more controlled circumstances, believing that Jonathan's love will be stronger after they've made legal and emotional commitments to each other. Madison closes her eyes and commits to seeing the deception through to the altar, unaware that professional investigators are already documenting her real life and that the truth will surface in the most devastating way possible. The day of the wedding arrives with Madison feeling nervous but hopeful as she prepares for what should be the happiest day of her life. She sits in the bridal limousine wearing a wedding dress that cost her months of desperate work, watching elegantly dressed guests arrive at the beautiful church. Every guest believes they're witnessing the union of two people from similar wealthy backgrounds, unaware that the bride has constructed an elaborate fictional identity. Madison's hands tremble as she applies final touches to her makeup, knowing that today will either fulfill her dreams or expose her as a fraud in the most public way possible. The morning sunlight feels both magical and ominous, illuminating a moment that could transform her life or destroy everything she's worked to achieve. Madison gets ready in the church's bridal preparation room, surrounded by hired attendants since her fictional family remains conveniently absent from the most important day of her life. The professional attendants seem puzzled by the complete absence of family members during such an intimate preparation time. Madison stares at her reflection in the mirrors, seeing a woman who looks perfect for Jonathan's world, while knowing that beneath the expensive dress lies someone who has built her entire relationship on lies. Despite her fear about potential discovery, she allows herself to believe that love might be powerful enough to overcome the deceptive circumstances of their relationship. The elegant bridal suite feels like a stage where she's preparing for the performance of her lifetime. Meanwhile, Jonathan prepares in the church vestry, feeling excited and nervous about beginning his married life with Madison, completely unaware that his mother has spent weeks investigating his bride's background. Jonathan genuinely believes he's marrying his perfect partner, someone who shares his values and comes from a similar successful background. He's disappointed that Madison's family couldn't attend due to business obligations, but attributes their absence to demanding international schedules. Jonathan has been greeting guests, deflecting questions about Madison's family by explaining their overseas commitments. His nervous energy stems from normal wedding day anticipation rather than any suspicion about Madison's true circumstances, making him completely unprepared for what awaits him. While Madison prepares in the bridal suite, Victoria Sterling receives the private investigator's final report and realizes she must act immediately to prevent her son from making a catastrophic mistake. Victoria approaches carrying a manila folder containing photographic evidence, employment records, and surveillance reports that completely contradict everything Madison has told Jonathan. Her face is pale with shock at discoveries that exceed even her worst suspicions about Madison's deception. "Jonathan, darling," Victoria says urgently, "I need to speak with you immediately about something extremely serious concerning Madison." The folder feels heavy in her hands, containing evidence that will shatter her son's world, but which she knows he must see before making a legal commitment to someone who has deceived him completely. Victoria opens the investigator's folder and shows Jonathan photographs of Madison working as a cleaning lady, along with documentation of her real employment history and financial situation. "These photographs were taken last week," Victoria says quietly, pointing to surveillance images of Madison in a cleaning uniform scrubbing floors in corporate buildings. "Jonathan, Madison isn't who she's told you she is. She works as a cleaning lady for minimum wage and has no wealthy family." The folder contains employment records from cleaning services, financial documents showing poverty, and proof that her supposedly wealthy family doesn't exist. Victoria watches her son's face change from confusion to disbelief as he processes evidence that contradicts everything he thought he knew about his bride. Jonathan stares at the investigation materials in complete shock, his mind struggling to process how thoroughly he's been deceived by the woman he thought he knew and loved. The photographs show Madison in circumstances that contradict everything she's told him, while financial records reveal that she lives in poverty and works multiple minimum wage jobs. "This can't be real," Jonathan whispers, examining documentation that proves Madison's wealthy family doesn't exist and her successful career is fictional. Victoria places a gentle hand on her son's shoulder as he realizes that every conversation about their shared values has been built on lies that Madison created and maintained with calculated precision throughout their entire relationship. Jonathan's shock transforms into betrayal and anger as he comprehends that the woman he loves doesn't actually exist, that Madison has been performing an elaborate character throughout their relationship. "How could she do this to me?" Jonathan asks his mother, his voice filled with pain. "Everything I thought I loved about her was a lie. Her sophistication, her understanding of my world. She's been acting this entire time." Victoria tries to comfort him while feeling vindicated about her suspicions. Jonathan realizes he's been in love with a fictional character that Madison created, and his hurt begins transforming into anger about the magnitude of deception that has shaped what he thought was the most important relationship of his life. The wedding guests, unaware of the crisis in the vestry, begin to notice the delay and wonder about Madison's family's absence from this important celebration. Pastor William Hayes checks his watch and considers investigating the delay, assuming normal pre-ceremony nerves are causing the postponement. The church is filled with Jonathan's family and friends, all expecting to witness a joyful wedding between two perfectly matched people. Guests murmur about Madison's family's absence, attributing it to demanding business schedules rather than questioning the pattern. The beautiful church setting creates a romantic atmosphere that contrasts sharply with the emotional devastation happening behind the scenes, where fairy tale romance is being exposed as an elaborate deception. The organist continues playing soft music while guests shift restlessly in their seats, beginning to sense that something might be wrong despite not knowing the magnitude of the crisis unfolding just out of their sight. Business associates and family friends discuss Madison's mysterious family and their complete absence from all wedding-related events, finding it increasingly strange that such successful people would miss their daughter's wedding. The elegant decorations and romantic atmosphere make the delay feel even more significant, as if the beautiful setting is waiting for a ceremony that might never begin. Pastor William considers checking on the wedding party, but decides to give them more time, unaware that the groom is currently learning that his entire relationship has been built on lies that are about to be exposed in the most public way possible. Jonathan makes the painful decision to confront Madison publicly about her deception rather than quietly calling off the wedding, driven by his sense of betrayal and need for answers. "I have to face her," Jonathan tells his mother, his voice hardening with resolve. "I need to understand how she could lie to me about everything, how she could let me fall in love with someone who doesn't exist." Victoria suggests handling the situation privately, but Jonathan's pain makes him want Madison to experience the same shock and exposure he's just endured. He decides that Madison's deception deserves a public revelation that matches the public commitment she was about to make under false pretenses. Jonathan straightens his tie and prepares to walk to the altar, not as a joyful groom, but as a betrayed man ready to expose the elaborate lie that has destroyed his trust and his heart. The humiliation begins as Jonathan, influenced by his mother's shocking revelations and the overwhelming evidence of Madison's deception, makes the devastating decision to confront her publicly in front of all 200 wedding guests. He walks to the altar with a determined but conflicted expression, his heart torn between the love he thought he felt and the betrayal he's just discovered. The guests sense something is wrong as Jonathan's demeanor lacks the joy expected of a groom on his wedding day. Madison appears at the back of the church in her beautiful wedding dress, completely unaware that her carefully constructed world is about to collapse in the most public and humiliating way possible. The contrast between her hopeful radiance and Jonathan's grim determination creates a tension that fills the elegant church with an ominous atmosphere. Madison begins her walk down the aisle, initially glowing with happiness, but gradually sensing that something is terribly wrong as she notices the strange atmosphere and Jonathan's unusual expression. The guests begin whispering among themselves, picking up on the tension radiating from the altar where Jonathan stands with an expression of barely controlled anger rather than joy. Madison steps slow as she approaches the altar, her instincts telling her that the fairy tale moment she's dreamed of is about to become a nightmare. She tries to catch Jonathan's eye, looking for reassurance, but his cold stare sends chills through her heart. The beautiful church setting, with its elegant flowers and romantic lighting, becomes a stage for what she's beginning to realize might be her public downfall rather than her triumphant transformation into Jonathan's wife. Jonathan decides to confront Madison directly at the altar, his pain and sense of betrayal overriding any consideration for her feelings or the public nature of their confrontation. "Madison," he says, his voice carrying clearly through the church's sound system, "before we proceed with these vows, I think our guests should know who you really are." His words send a chill through the congregation as people begin to sense that something dramatic is about to unfold. Madison's face goes pale as she realizes that Jonathan has discovered something about her deception, but she doesn't yet understand the full extent of what he knows. The wedding guests lean forward in their seats, confused by the unexpected turn of events and the groom's hostile tone toward his bride. Pastor William Hayes looks concerned and confused, unsure whether to intervene or allow the situation to unfold. Jonathan publicly accuses Madison of being a liar and deceiver, his voice filled with hurt and anger as he reveals the truth about her background to the shocked congregation. "This woman has lied to me about everything," Jonathan announces, his voice echoing through the church. "She's not from a wealthy family. She doesn't have a successful career, and she's been deceiving me about every aspect of her life for the entire time I've known her." The wedding guests gasp in shock and disbelief, their elegant celebration transforming into a public scandal that will be talked about in their social circle for years. Madison stands frozen at the altar, her beautiful wedding dress suddenly feeling like a costume in a performance that has gone horribly wrong. The romantic church setting becomes a courtroom where she's being tried and convicted in front of everyone she hoped would accept her into their world. Madison tries desperately to explain herself and salvage the situation, But Jonathan's anger and the public nature of the confrontation make rational conversation impossible. "Jonathan, please, let me explain," Madison pleads, her voice breaking with emotion and desperation. "Yes, I haven't been completely honest about my background, but my feelings for you are real. Everything between us is real." But Jonathan's sense of betrayal runs too deep for him to listen to her explanations, and the public setting makes him feel compelled to justify his accusations rather than consider her perspective. Some guests begin recording the confrontation on their phones, ensuring that Madison's humiliation will be preserved and potentially shared beyond the immediate audience. The beautiful wedding ceremony has become a public trial, where Madison is being condemned without the opportunity to properly defend herself or explain the complex emotions that led to her deception. Jonathan declares that he cannot marry someone who has built their entire relationship on lies, effectively abandoning Madison at the altar in front of 200 witnesses. "I cannot and will not marry someone who has deceived me about every fundamental aspect of who she is," Jonathan states with finality, his voice carrying the weight of absolute rejection. "This wedding is over." His words hit Madison like physical blows, destroying not only their relationship, but also her dreams of belonging in his world and her hopes for a future built on love and acceptance. The congregation sits in stunned silence, witnessing the complete collapse of what they thought was a fairy tale romance between two people from similar backgrounds. Madison stands alone at the altar in her expensive wedding dress, the beautiful gown now serving as a costume for her public humiliation rather than her triumphant transformation into Jonathan's wife. Madison stands abandoned at the altar, her fairy tale wedding transformed into a public nightmare that will destroy her reputation and any chance of acceptance in Jonathan's social circle. The wedding guests begin murmuring among themselves, some expressing shock and sympathy, while others seem almost entertained by the dramatic turn of events. Several people continue recording the scene, ensuring that Madison's humiliation will be shared and discussed far beyond the immediate audience. The elegant church setting, decorated for a celebration of love, now feels like a stage for her public execution as a deceiver and social climber. Madison realizes that not only has she lost Jonathan and their relationship, but she's also been exposed as a fraud in front of the very people she hoped would accept her into their sophisticated world. The beautiful wedding dress that cost her months of desperate work now feels like evidence of her deception rather than a symbol of her dreams. Pastor William Hayes attempts to mediate the situation and provide some comfort to Madison, but the damage to her reputation and emotional state is already catastrophic and irreversible. "My dear," Pastor Williams says gently, approaching Madison with genuine concern for her well-being, "perhaps we should step away from here and find a quiet place to talk." His pastoral instincts override the social dynamics of the situation, focusing on Madison's obvious distress rather than the scandal she's created. However, the public nature of the confrontation and the complete exposure of her deception make any attempt at damage control futile. The guests continue to process what they've witnessed, with many beginning to leave while others remain to see how the dramatic situation will conclude. Madison's tears blur her vision as she realizes that her attempt to enter Jonathan's world through deception has not only failed, but has also resulted in the most humiliating public rejection possible. The immediate aftermath of Madison's public humiliation begins as guests process what they've witnessed, and the social consequences of the failed wedding start to unfold. Some guests express genuine sympathy for Madison's situation, understanding that while her deception was wrong, the public nature of her humiliation seems cruel and excessive. Others, however, seem almost entertained by the drama and begin gossiping about the scandal that will undoubtedly become a major topic of conversation in their social circles. Madison flees the church in her wedding dress, her dreams of belonging in Jonathan's world completely shattered along with her reputation among the very people she'd hoped would accept her. The beautiful wedding that was supposed to represent her triumphant entry into a life of privilege and respect has instead become the most devastating and public failure of her life, leaving her more isolated and heartbroken than she was before she ever met Jonathan. Madison leaves the church alone and devastated, her wedding dress serving as a cruel reminder of the dreams that have been destroyed by the exposure of her deception. Katie arrives to take her home, having heard about the disaster from someone who witnessed the confrontation, and she tries to provide comfort while Madison processes the magnitude of what has just happened to her life. The expensive wedding dress that represented months of sacrifice and hope now feels like a mockery of her ambitions, a beautiful costume for the most humiliating performance of her life. Madison sits in Katie's car, still wearing the gown, unable to speak as she contemplates how thoroughly her attempt to transform her life through deception has backfired. The fairy tale romance she thought she was living has revealed itself to be a nightmare that has left her more broken and isolated than she was before she ever dreamed of belonging in Jonathan's sophisticated world of privilege and success. The aftermath of the revelation leaves Madison completely devastated and withdrawn, spending weeks in her small apartment barely able to function as she processes the magnitude of her public humiliation and the loss of everything she thought she had built with Jonathan. She sits on their old couch wearing simple clothes, a stark contrast to the elegant designer outfits she wore during her deception, staring blankly at the walls while Katie tries to provide comfort and support. The expensive wedding dress hangs in their tiny closet like a ghost of her shattered dreams, too painful to look at but impossible to throw away. Madison barely eats, sleeps fitfully, and speaks only when necessary, overwhelmed by shame about the lies she told and grief for the love she's lost. The fairy tale life she briefly experienced now feels like a cruel dream that makes her real circumstances seem even more hopeless and depressing. Katie becomes Madison's primary source of support during the darkest period of her life, providing both practical help and emotional comfort while her friend struggles to rebuild her sense of self-worth. "You're going to get through this," Katie says gently, bringing Madison tea and trying to encourage her to eat something. "It's going to hurt for a while, but you're stronger than you think, and this isn't the end of your story." Katie helps Madison handle the practical consequences of the failed wedding, including returning and used wedding items, dealing with vendors, and managing the debt Madison accumulated trying to maintain her deception. She also protects Madison from social media posts and gossip about the wedding scandal, understanding that her friend needs time to heal before facing the public aftermath of her humiliation. Katie's unwavering loyalty and compassion provide the only stable foundation in Madison's world as she begins the difficult process of rebuilding her life and identity. Madison isolates herself for weeks, struggling with depression and shame, while Katie gently encourages her to begin the process of healing and moving forward with her life. Madison spends days in bed, overwhelmed by the emotional pain of losing Jonathan and the shame of having her deception exposed so publicly. She replays the wedding scene obsessively, wondering if she could have handled things differently or if there was any way to have avoided the devastating outcome. Katie opens the curtains each morning, brings meals Madison barely touches, and provides gentle companionship without judgment or pressure to recover faster than she's able. The small apartment feels like a sanctuary from the outside world, where Madison's humiliation has become a topic of gossip and social media speculation. Katie understands that her friend needs time to process not only the loss of a relationship, but also the complete collapse of the identity she had constructed and the dreams she had built around it. Katie gradually encourages Madison to see the failed relationship as an opportunity for growth and self-discovery rather than just a devastating loss, helping her friend begin to rebuild her confidence and sense of purpose. Maybe this is your chance to figure out who you really are when you're not trying to be someone else, Katie suggests during one of their evening conversations. You're intelligent, hardworking, and caring. Those are real qualities that don't depend on money or social status. Katie helps Madison understand that while her deception was wrong, the pain she's experiencing might lead to important personal growth and a more authentic way of living. She encourages Madison to think about what she actually wants from life, separate from the fantasy of belonging to Jonathan's wealthy world. Katie's perspective helps Madison begin to see that her worth as a person isn't determined by her economic status or social connections, but by her character and the genuine connections she can build with people who accept her for who she really is. With Katie's support, Madison slowly begins to rebuild her life by focusing on practical goals and developing a more authentic sense of identity based on her real strengths and interests rather than fictional accomplishments. She starts by addressing her financial situation, working with credit counselors to manage the debt she accumulated during her deception and exploring options for legitimate career advancement that don't require pretending to be someone she's not. Madison begins to see a therapist who helps her understand the emotional factors that led to her elaborate deception and develop healthier ways of building self-worth and relationships. She also starts taking evening classes to develop professional skills that could lead to better employment opportunities, focusing on her genuine interests rather than trying to impress people from Jonathan's social circle. The process is slow and often painful, but Madison begins to experience a sense of authenticity and self-respect that she never achieved while living her lie. Madison decides to use her painful experience as motivation to build a genuine life based on her real abilities and interests, enrolling in business classes and working toward legitimate professional advancement. The community college environment feels welcoming and authentic in ways that Jonathan's exclusive social circles never did, filled with people from diverse backgrounds who are working to improve their circumstances through honest effort. Madison discovers that she has a natural aptitude for business strategy and marketing, skills that she can develop legitimately rather than pretending to possess them. Her classmates accept her for who she is without requiring expensive clothes or fabricated background stories, helping her rebuild her confidence through genuine achievements and authentic relationships. The studying is challenging but rewarding, giving Madison a sense of purpose and direction that doesn't depend on deception or the approval of people who judge others based on wealth and social status. Madison's determination and honesty begin to attract positive attention from people who value character over social status, leading to opportunities she never could have achieved through deception. She starts a small cleaning service business, using her experience in the industry and the business skills she's developing in school to create something meaningful and authentic. Her reputation for reliability and integrity helps her build a client base of people who respect her work ethic and honest approach to business relationships. Madison finds satisfaction in providing quality service and building genuine professional relationships based on mutual respect rather than social pretense. The business starts small but grows steadily as Madison applies the marketing and organizational skills she's learning, proving to herself that she can achieve success through honest effort and genuine competence rather than elaborate lies and borrowed identities. Madison gradually finds genuine happiness and fulfillment through authentic relationships and meaningful work that aligns with her real values and abilities rather than the superficial lifestyle she once craved. She begins volunteering at a community center, helping other women who are struggling with financial difficulties and low self-esteem, sharing her hard-won wisdom about the importance of authenticity and self-acceptance. The volunteer work gives Madison a sense of purpose and connection that she never achieved while trying to impress Jonathan's social circle, helping her understand that true fulfillment comes from contributing to others' well-being rather than accumulating status symbols. Her genuine empathy and practical wisdom make her an effective mentor for women facing similar challenges, and she discovers leadership abilities that were hidden while she was focused on performing a fictional identity. Madison begins to see that her painful experience with deception has given her unique insights that can help others avoid similar mistakes and find authentic paths to happiness and success. During her legitimate business activities, Madison meets Daniel Cooper, a hardworking carpenter who appreciates her authenticity and work ethic without requiring any pretense about her background or social status. Their initial interactions are professional as Madison's cleaning service works on construction sites where Daniel is employed, but they gradually develop a friendship based on mutual respect and genuine compatibility. Daniel's straightforward, honest nature creates a safe environment where Madison can be completely herself without fear of judgment or the need for elaborate deceptions. He's impressed by her business acumen and determination to build something meaningful through honest work, qualities he values far more than social status or inherited wealth. Their relationship develops slowly and naturally, built on shared values about the importance of integrity, hard work, and treating people with respect regardless of their economic circumstances or social background. Madison gradually learns to trust again and opens her heart to the possibility of love based on honesty and mutual acceptance rather than deception and social pretense. Daniel's consistent kindness and genuine interest in her thoughts and dreams help Madison understand what authentic love feels like, contrasting sharply with the performance-based relationship she had with Jonathan. With Daniel, she doesn't need expensive clothes, fictional family stories, or elaborate lies about her background. He values her intelligence, compassion, and determination while accepting her past mistakes without judgment. Madison realizes that her painful experience with Jonathan, while devastating at the time, taught her important lessons about the difference between genuine love and relationships based on false pretenses. She begins to understand that Daniel's love for her real self is infinitely more valuable and sustainable than Jonathan's love for the fictional character she created, giving her hope for a future built on truth, mutual respect, and authentic emotional connection. 2 years later, Madison has built a successful and respected cleaning business that serves clients throughout the city, establishing herself as a reliable entrepreneur known for her integrity and quality service. Her small office displays certificates, client testimonials, and evidence of steady business growth achieved through honest work and genuine competence rather than deception or social pretense. Madison reviews contracts and schedules with confidence, having developed legitimate business skills and professional relationships that reflect her real abilities and character. The transformation from desperate deceiver to successful business owner has been gradual but profound, built on the foundation of authenticity and hard work that she learned to value after her painful experience with Jonathan. Madison's business relationship with Daniel Cooper has evolved into a genuine partnership built on mutual respect, shared values, and authentic compatibility that contrasts sharply with the deception that characterized her relationship with Jonathan. They work together on renovation projects, combining Madison's cleaning services with Daniel's carpentry expertise to provide comprehensive property improvement services for their clients. Their professional collaboration is seamless and productive, based on honest communication, complementary skills, and shared commitment to quality workmanship and ethical business practices. Daniel appreciates Madison's business acumen and organizational abilities, while she values his craftsmanship and straightforward approach to both work and personal relationships. Madison and Daniel's romantic relationship develops organically from their professional partnership and friendship, based on honesty, mutual respect, and genuine compatibility rather than social pretense or economic considerations. Their conversations flow naturally between business discussions, personal dreams, and shared values about the importance of hard work, integrity, and treating people with respect regardless of their economic circumstances. Daniel knows Madison's complete story, including her painful experience with deception and public humiliation, but he values her growth from that experience rather than judging her for past mistakes. Madison feels completely comfortable being herself with Daniel, sharing her thoughts, fears, and ambitions without needing to maintain any facade or pretense about her background. Madison has created a comfortable and authentic lifestyle that reflects her real values and circumstances rather than attempting to impress others with borrowed luxury or fictional wealth. Her apartment is nicely furnished but modest, decorated with items she's purchased through her legitimate business earnings rather than borrowed or pretended accessories. She and Daniel cook dinner together, enjoying simple pleasures and genuine companionship that doesn't require expensive restaurants or elaborate social performances. Madison has learned to find satisfaction in authentic experiences and relationships rather than the superficial lifestyle she once craved, understanding that genuine happiness comes from being accepted and loved for who she really is. Madison uses her painful experience with deception as a way to help other women who are struggling with self-worth and the temptation to present false versions of themselves to gain acceptance or love. She volunteers at community centers and women's groups, sharing her story as a cautionary tale about the dangers of building relationships on lies, while also demonstrating that recovery and authentic happiness are possible after devastating mistakes. Her genuine empathy and hard-won wisdom make her an effective mentor for women facing similar challenges with self-esteem, financial pressure, and the desire to belong in social circles that seem beyond their reach. Madison's willingness to be vulnerable about her mistakes and growth helps others understand that they don't need to pretend to be someone else to be worthy of love and respect. Madison now provides cleaning services to some of the same upscale office buildings where she once worked in shame and secrecy, but her relationship with the work has been completely transformed by her journey toward authenticity and self-acceptance. She enters these buildings with confidence and professional pride, no longer hiding her occupation or feeling ashamed of honest work that provides valuable service to clients who respect her competence and reliability. The executives and professionals she serves treat her with courtesy and appreciation, recognizing the quality of her work and the integrity of her business practices. Madison's experience has taught her that respect comes from how you conduct yourself rather than what type of work you do, and she's proud of building a successful business through honest effort and ethical practices. Madison marries Daniel in a small, intimate ceremony that reflects their genuine values and authentic relationship, rather than attempting to impress others with elaborate displays of wealth or social status. The wedding is held in a simple church with close friends and family members who know and accept both Madison and Daniel for who they really are, creating an atmosphere of genuine love and celebration. Madison wears a beautiful but modest wedding dress that she purchased with her own earnings, and the ceremony focuses on their commitment to honesty, mutual support, and building a life together based on shared values rather than social expectations. The contrast with her previous wedding attempt is profound. This ceremony represents genuine love and authentic commitment rather than a performance designed to maintain elaborate deceptions. The wedding reception is modest but filled with genuine joy and celebration from people who truly care about Madison and Daniel's happiness rather than attending for social obligation or networking opportunities. Katie serves as maid of honor, having supported Madison through her darkest period and celebrating her friend's transformation and genuine happiness. The guests include clients who have become friends, fellow business owners who respect their work ethic, and community members who have witnessed Madison's growth and recovery. The reception features simple but heartfelt toasts that focus on the couple's character, their journey to find each other, and their commitment to building a life based on honesty and mutual respect. Madison and Daniel's happiness is evident and authentic, radiating from their genuine love and the solid foundation of friendship and shared values that supports their relationship. Jonathan attempts to reconnect with Madison when he discovers her business success and personal transformation, but Madison, now strong and self-assured, firmly declines his overtures. When Jonathan approaches her with apologies and suggestions about rekindling their relationship, Madison listens politely, but makes it clear that she has moved on completely and built a life based on authenticity rather than the deception that characterized their past relationship. She feels no bitterness toward Jonathan, but also no desire to return to a dynamic that was fundamentally based on lies and social pretense. Madison's refusal comes from a place of strength and self-knowledge rather than hurt or anger, demonstrating how much she has grown since their devastating wedding day confrontation. She wishes Jonathan well, but makes it clear that her future lies with Daniel and the authentic life they're building together. Madison reflects on her incredible journey from desperate deception to authentic happiness, understanding that her painful experience ultimately led her to discover her true self and find genuine love with someone who accepts her completely. She's genuinely grateful that the truth came out when it did, recognizing that a marriage built on lies would have eventually collapsed in an even more devastating way. Madison realizes that losing Jonathan's love for a fictional character allowed her to find Daniel's love for her real self, which is infinitely more valuable and sustainable. Her story concludes with the understanding that authentic happiness and genuine love are only possible when built on truth, honesty, and mutual acceptance. Madison thanks God for allowing the painful revelation that ultimately led her to the kind of love and respect that can only exist between people who know and accept each other's true selves. Thank you for watching. What did you think of Madison's journey? Share your thoughts below, like if this story touched your heart, and subscribe for more incredible stories about the power of truth and authentic love.